comedy, I guess.
Mhm.
Like I always thought of it as like a potentially scary movie when I was like young, I guess. One thing I was like pretty surprised by was the first ghost you see is actually like a really, really good special effect.
Yeah.
And an actual like insanely good jump scare.
Hello, everyone. It's
Yo.
It's welcome to the Anime Summit podcast. It's another EX episode, and we're doing another Cinnamontography because it's spooky month. And Sam's not here with me. I know normally Sam does these Cinnamontography episodes with me, but I have a guest with me, my pal, my friend from Weebologists. I have Ethan with me.
What is up, everybody?
Thank you, Ethan, for coming on and doing this with me.
It's my pleasure. I love the Spooktober kind of ideal.
Yes.
The aesthetic. And Ghostbusters, which we're talking about today.
Yes, we are talking about The Boys.
Probably a movie I watched like maybe once previous to this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know.
I just had the assumption that like, yeah, I love this movie. This is I own this movie and yeah.
So my dad is like a big like movie guy, so we have just a bajillion movies.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I don't like watch all of them.
You don't go
frequently.
out of your way. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Alrighty. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, so originally, so what I'm going to be doing with like this Cinnamontography series is, since it is spooky month, every week you are going to get a movie review on a Halloween-esque movie. I was going to do Hocus Pocus last Friday, but since we did Edge Runners and everything, and we're in the mix of doing summer review, things got a little out of hand, and I couldn't grab anyone to do the Hocus Pocus review with me. So maybe next time. But in these last coming weeks, you will definitely get a Halloween movie review. And I'm excited. So, but Ethan, so tell me a little bit, like, I know you said earlier you don't really go out of your way on watching movies, but just give me a background, like, on how much movies you like to watch and when you feel like you want to watch a movie.
Well, so I do watch a ton of movies. I just meant I don't like rewatch constantly unless it's like one of my faves. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting is like I used to like really not enjoy or essentially dislike horror movies in general.
I mean, I'm the same way.
I mean, Ghostbusters really is more comedy than horror, obviously.
Yeah.
But like in general, I barely watch those. Like, and for some reason, maybe I'm just dead inside now, but they don't really affect me much anymore. Like, I'm not really scared of scary movies anymore. But like when I was growing up, like my parents would be watching one, and I'd have to like leave or like hide. So it's just kind of like but in general, I mean, I'm a big like movie guy. We have like probably 700 movies on our like Apple Movies thing.
Oh wow, okay.
Yes, and I've seen probably like 500 of those, and then obviously a bunch of other movies that we don't own. But I'm a pretty big movie guy, honestly.
We'll have to get you back on more often for these extra episodes. Because, I mean, I'm a big movie person, and sometimes, like, I'll just go through my collection of Blu-rays and DVDs, and I'll just, like, pick up a stack. Like, maybe, I want to say, like, the max stack I would have set aside would probably be, like, 5 movies, and I'll just set them aside by my TV, and whenever I feel like I want to watch a movie, I'll just grab that movie and I'll pop it in and I'll watch it. That's just kind.
What would you say is the movie that you've watched the most?
Oh gosh. Honestly, it'd probably be The Breakfast Club.
Wow.
Yeah, I can recite that movie almost to the T, especially if I watch it. Probably not right now. I won't be able to recite it because it's been a very long time since I've seen it. But when I first learned about that movie, you better believe I was watching it every day, practically.
Wow. No, I mean, it's a good movie.
Yeah. So
I don't know, those types of movies I never really was like super into, obviously, growing up, because I don't know, they're more like rom-com almost, or like,
I mean,
not
they're
even
like
rom-com.
the John Hughes movies are like the school kid coming of age kind of stories.
Right.
So, which, I mean, that's like a whole like thing on its own and everything like that. We can always talk about that another time for sure. I would love to talk about Breakfast Club and any John Hughes film, because I think that between like the 80s and the 90s, Hollywood was definitely in their prime, and a lot of good movies were coming out around that time.
Yeah, they were popping off.
Yeah, like Ghostbusters, for example. So let's get into it. But first, don't forget to check out our links, links.animesummit.net, and also give us a rating on Spotify, because we want to get to 100 ratings. And once we get to 100 ratings, we'll do a live Twitch stream with some giveaways, and I will also be reviewing School Days for that.
Nice.
So. Yeah. That is going not to be fun. So anyway.
So Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters. Let's give like a quick summary. Ghostbusters is a film that was made in 1984. And the storyline is about Peter Venkman, Ray Sanchez, and Egon Spentler, who worked at Columbia University, and they pretty much delve into paranormal activities and all that kind of stuff. And they did unethical experiments on their students, like you see in the movie with Venkman. They were kicked out of the university, and they were really interested in paranormal stuff, so they go into business. They buy an old firehouse, make that their sanctuary, their base in New York, and pretty much they went around New York and got rid of spirits and ghosts and all that fun stuff. And they also meet Zool and the gatekeeper and the keymaster and all that weird stuff that happens in Sigourney Weaver's apartment in the movie.
I think like my initial thoughts, like rewatching it all these years later, I was so surprised how like borderline sexual harassment everything was. I didn't like, I guess when I was young, even put two and two together of like Peter Venkman basically trying to bang his student.
Oh
like,
yeah,
in the beginning scene.
Yeah, with like the whole like, guess the, what is this card, and like he keeps freaking zapping the guy, but the girl, she was all like, oh, it's a star, and then the camera turns and it's like a square. It's like, wow, you really got that right. How are you doing this?
I didn't realize like how, I don't know, like how icky that scene was. And then there's like a couple of scenes later with like ghosts or like arms or whatever coming out of Sigourney Weaver's like chair, grabbing her in all these weird locations. And I'm like, my God, it was just a different time.
I mean, there was no like, hey, don't you think we should maybe not have the arm go in between her legs? Like, but I mean, when we first saw this movie, especially as kids, we're not really thinking about that. We're thinking about, holy shit, she's going to get like possessed soon. Like, because when that happens to Sigourney, you know, she gets possessed later on that day. So like, we're not really thinking about like the position of the arms of the demons and everything like that. We're just like.
Do you remember the first time you watched it?
Oh, I mean, probably somewhere like just flipping through the channels on TV or something. Because we never, in my house, we never owned the movie or anything like that. Honestly, I think the very first time that I actually saw it from beginning to end was probably in my early 20s when Hulu started to pop up and everything like that.
Yeah, one thing that's kind of like an interesting thing that I've kind of noticed is like as I got older, things that probably scared me when I was young are just like nothing burgers.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I guess I wish I could talk to somebody who saw this like in theaters or whatever.
Right.
But like, I wonder if this was ever like actually a scary movie to anybody.
Honestly, I really don't think so. Because you watched the Netflix episode on. So there on Netflix there is a docuseries called The Movies That Made Us. And it's season 1, episode 4, they talk about Ghostbusters. And while they were making the movie, they did a pre-screening. Because first of all, they never dealt with special effects. And obviously they are definitely, they need those special effects for the spirits and ghosts and everything like that. So they had a pre-screening and they just wanted to see how people reacted to the movie. And to my recollection from that episode, I don't think anyone was like terrified. I mean, I remember when Sigourney started screaming and it just kind of went black and there was like a text that says, you know, special effects goes here. It was when like she opened her fridge and you saw like the other dimension, and she got terrified and she slammed the door and like the audience kind of like screamed and like they clapped and stuff. So they seemed intrigued, but I really don't think that anyone would have been scared of this movie because it's definitely more of a comedy and everything like that. Dan Aykroyd, he is actually the writer of Ghostbusters. And the reason why he wrote Ghostbusters is because apparently it's family business. His parents and his ancestors dealt with paranormal activity back in like the 1800s, I think. So, which I found very interesting. I don't know about you. Just having like the little background of like the mind of like writers whenever they write movies like this.
I first of all, thank you for telling me to watch that Netflix series on this because that was like really enlightening. I love the kind of like the real behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Like my favorite movie of all time is Jurassic Park, which also
it's
had
on
an
there.
episode on it.
Yep.
So I watched that actually after. But very just like interesting how kind of all these movies come together, and especially this one. I think it was interesting also because they were talking about kind of the previous like summer comedies that did well.
Yes.
And then Dan Aykroyd bringing this script or screenplay or whatever to the director that had some pretty successful previous comedies.
Yes.
And just like it was kind of like a dorky screenplay.
Yeah,
and
it
I
was
think
definitely
they changed it a bunch.
Yeah. So Dan Aykroyd's vision for Ghostbusters was like in space or something like that. It was just very out there and a lot of it really didn't make sense. And the director who directed this movie was Ivan Reitman, who did what did he do? I think he did Stripes and he also did Meatballs. So which I never seen Stripes, but I've seen Meatballs, and Meatballs is another favorite movie of mine. Oh, he also did Kindergarten Cop. I love Kindergarten Cop. I don't know if you saw that movie, but that movie's great.
I think I saw when I was young. Like, it's not like one of those that I like know all of the movie beats or anything.
Yeah. So but Ivan was all like, "Yeah, let's do this. This seems great." But before we like go ahead and do this, I want to get Harold Ramis on this too. So, and that's when Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis just joined forces, and they wrote Ghostbusters together. They also wrote Ghostbusters 2 as well. So
I was really surprised how like easy it was for them to get Dan Aykroyd to be like, yeah, sure, I'll take a co-writer.
Oh my gosh, he was so like open to it, and sometimes, I mean, even in the movies that made us, the docuseries, a lot of other like movies and like some of the writers and stuff like that, some of them can be very adamant on like, no, I don't want this changed. Like, why are you changing that? Like, I don't want a co-writer, blah, 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 and everything. But Dan, Aykroyd, he's just like, yep, let's do this. Cool. I'm familiar with Ramis's work. Let's do this. And I mean, Dan, he even said that Harold wasn't really, he was more of a skeptic for paranormal stuff. But Ackland said that Ramis was very aligned with Dan about writing and everything. So it worked out. I mean, I think it worked out. The movie's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't know, that kind of like juxtaposition or like that slamming together of talents was like extra interesting for me because like what I do in my job is like occasionally I have to do like technology things where we're doing like new stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of times like the inventor, so to speak, of that is just like so like married to their exact vision of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But like very rarely can you actually produce something that's just like your harebrained idea. There's like a lot of give and take when you like invent or make something new, and writing I think is no different.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially with like a screenplay where like this has to be something that we can actually put on the silver screen, guys, you know? So it's just like a very interesting, like I personally have dealt with way more like pushback from like the quote unquote an inventor as to like how to actually make it than I felt like Dan Aykroyd put up, which I mean, massive props to him.
Yeah. I mean, well, he's a comic legend. Like numerous of movies, Blues Brothers. What was that movie that he did with Eddie Murphy? Trading Places.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Coneheads. I mean, come on, like he's a comic legend and everything. Same thing with Harold Ramis. He was a comic legend too. So, but yeah, like. Another thing that I also thought was really interesting was Aykroyd. He actually wrote he wanted this movie to star him, Eddie Murphy, and John Belushi. So, and he was in prep of writing for Belushi and everything like that, but unfortunately in 1982 Belushi passed away. So his co-worker, co-star, best friend practically was gone, so everything was scrapped up. And that's kind of when Ramis came into play, and he was all like, well, I want to be in this too. I don't want to just be a writer. So and then that's,
you know what I thought, like once I found out that Eddie Murphy was supposed to be in it, and I think this is almost like a really cool thing, is like my version of Ghostbusters growing up was probably Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy. Like just thinking about it, it's sort of like the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, damn, he literally could have done it twice.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe he like felt bad about not being in it the first time, and he's like, all right, let's do my version.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we don't know what happened throughout the whole thing, because originally Venkman was actually supposed to be Eddie Murphy. That's what Dan wrote for Eddie, but since they already had Bill on board, kind of, sort of, until he actually showed up to shooting, which I thought was really hilarious. They're all like, "Yeah, Bill's gonna do it. Bill's gonna do it. Have you got confirmation? I don't know." And then,
I mean, what a kick-ass story, right? They literally had no clue. They had been doing pre-production for like 6 months.
yeah,
And then day of filming, he just shows up at 8 a.m.
Yeah, because he was all like,
what the fuck?
yeah, not only that, but like I think when they were just about to like start, like the first day, they were like, "Well, has anyone heard from Bill?" And they're all like, "Oh, I heard that he was in France." And it's like, what?
He's quite the enigma. So this is actually like some insider South Carolina knowledge for y'all. Very often there's this kind of like, I don't know, myth or whatever. He has a house in Charleston.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he just randomly will show up to like wedding receptions or bachelor parties and things like that. And like he doesn't let people take pictures of him, but he'll just like show up, and then occasionally, this is even crazier, he'll just like bust into like College of Charleston like parties.
Oh, wow.
Like hang out with them, and he'll be like, nobody will believe you.
What?
So you know
That
what I mean?
is
Like so he just
oh my gosh,
he just does like wild shit, and like
that-
nobody will believe him. So
like,
he can get away with anything.
Man, after you just said that, that is such a Bill Murray thing to do.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so funny because I was actually talking about Bill Murray's acting to a coworker of mine not too long ago, because Caddyshack, all of his lines were improv. Like he had no script to follow in that movie. Literally, a lot of Bill Murray's lines are super improv, and he just thinks of them on the spot. Same thing with this movie. In the movies that made us, they did mention that they did 2 takes, and Bill, after they disposed of the like they captured the ghost and everything like that, and like he opened the door. I can't remember the line he said.
We came, we saw, we kicked it.
Yeah, well, that was the final take, but the first take that they did, it was, I can't remember what it was, but they're all like, "Yep, we're gonna do that second one, and that's it." So, but yeah, so that's like a lot of background. So let's dive in. Let's dive in like to our actual like thoughts and everything like that. Ethan, do you want to go first, since you said this is like your second time watching it?
It's probably like my third or fourth, but
okay.
definitely my first time of like cognizant age where I like remember everything.
Okay,
you know what
yeah.
I mean, overall, I didn't know the background of like billing this as a comedy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always thought of it as like a potentially scary movie when I was like young, I guess. One thing I was like pretty surprised by was the first ghost you see is actually like a really, really good special effects.
Yeah.
And an actual like insanely good jump scare. So I was like, wow, this might actually be like a solid movie.
Yeah, the special effects in this are definitely
There's ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. I mean, it's an 80s film, and they were definitely very new to special, FX and special effects during that time. And I remember them saying in the Netflix docuseries, they were trying to find people who do special effects, because none of the staff or the crew rather had any idea on what to do with the special effects. And I think they said that the only like top-notch special effects company was ILM. But ILM was in the process of doing Indiana Jones with Steven Spielberg, but apparently there were a few employees who weren't really happy with ILM, so they decided to leave the studio, and they formed Boss Film Studios, which is another special effects company and everything like that, which I thought was really cool. And they needed $5 million to establish that company.
Yeah, which like these days would be really nothing for like beginning a company.
Yeah.
I thought one of the other cool things, like just quickly back to the background of the story, was that Ivan guy goes to the CEO of Columbia Pictures and he pitches it. The guy instantly says yes because he wants like he's like wants a summer comedy, extravaganza.
Right. Yeah.
And they just like name a random price out of thin air.
Yeah. So their budget to make this movie was between 25 to 30 million, and the movie, the release date, they were very strict on the release date. It was June 8th, 1984. And the box office, they made $295.2 million. So
Damn.
It was a success. Yeah.
A smash success for sure.
Yeah. So much so that they got a sequel out of it. So
yeah, but I mean, like overall, I didn't recall that Sigourney Weaver was in it either. So like when I saw her, I was like, "Yo!"
Oh yeah,
they like got a pretty good cast on this thing.
Yeah, so they got Bill. We did name a few people earlier, but they got Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick. I can't pronounce his name. It's the guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Moranis. And Annie Potts, William, I don't know who that is. And then Ernie Hudson. So those are practically the four main people that, or a few of the people that you need to know of this movie and stuff. But yeah, the thing with Sigourney Weaver, I find rather interesting because around in the 80s, she was more of a serious character, like actor. So she was like doing Aliens at that time and all these like serious roles. So when she came up to audition and everything, when she's like in front of like the casting people who were doing the auditions and stuff, she's like, well, I think, my character should form into like a dog, like the demi-dog. and she freaking got up on the table and like started, like be like on all fours and howling like a dog and like just being possessed, and they're all like, okay, yeah, she's gonna be in the movie.
I mean, Hollywood was just different back then, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, that is wild shit. I mean, it really makes you think, like, I mean, the shit that must have gone on in these casting rooms.
Oh,
and, like,
I mean, well, they were even
old school Hollywood must have been insane.
I mean, they were even talking about while they were fucking writing the movie, they were like smoking pot and everything too. So, yeah, well,
I mean, when you're doing like occultist stuff back in the 80s, you better be
you better be stoned or like smoking something. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that was my first thing when I actually kind of sat down and as an adult, not as a child, watching this, like, ooh, ghosts, like Ghostbusters, and like the song for that matter too is iconic. Like, especially when you're a kid, you're not really paying attention to like who's in the movie and everything like that too. Over the weekend, I did watch it again. And there is an actor in the movie. I don't think she's credited for it, but one of the when Venkman was on his talk show and he was talking to I think someone who doesn't believe in like doesn't believe in paranormal stuff, but then there is a woman who says that she was like possessed and everything like that. That woman, she is actually the mother of the kids from Shameless. And I thought that was like, whoa, that's really weird and interesting to see, like actors from shows that I've seen early, like later on, especially like with Shameless, and to see them in a movie like this
it's kind of weird. Like Hollywood's just like super incestuous.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people have like, you know, family members throughout the entire like business, so to speak.
Right. It's just wild to see like actors that you saw like when they're older, to see them like just look so young. It's just wild. So
Well, even Sigourney Weaver, like of course like Alien, but what I know her most from is actually as Warden Walker from Holes.
oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot she fucking did that movie. Holy
I mean, that was one of my
shit.
big movies growing up. I loved the book when I was young.
Yeah.
Probably read that a couple times actually, and then the movie was just like super good.
Yeah.
And then you got what's his face, Shia LaBeouf in it, and it's just like he goes on to be like a massive actor.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I was a big Even Stevens guy too when I was young.
Yeah. I mean, Sigourney, she's a big name in the industry. So, fun fact about Sigourney Weaver. So, my high school back in Jersey, they did a play on Alien, and Sigourney Weaver went to my high school to see the play.
No way.
I
That's sick.
kid you not. Like, someone on Facebook, I think my mom shared it or something like that. It was like in an article and stuff like that. And it was like Sigourney Weaver goes to North Bergen High School in praise of the Alien play that they did.
That's wild.
Yeah. Like I saw that, I was just like, well, what the fuck? Like, why couldn't my high school do that when I was in high school? Like, that's bullshit. So, but yeah.
But like the movie overall is really, really funny. I think Bill Murray basically plays the same sort of like cocky character in every role he does.
Yeah. He's definitely a charmer in this film for sure, especially when it comes to Dana and everything, or any female for that matter.
It's just kind of like his vibe in general, but he's got like, I think one of his most iconic scenes that I think of, like, of course, like the entire Caddyshack movie, but there's like the scene where she and one of her like orchestral compatriots are like walking outside the building, like coming out from their orchestra practice, and you see him like do this like kind of like weird dance thing across like in front of them, across the like the really famous like fountain in New York.
Yeah.
And for some reason that's like such an iconic like kind of view in my like recollection of all of his scenes.
Yeah.
It's just like he's just like such a memer. And he's like potentially one of the first memers ever.
Right. He's ahead of his time for being a memer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, I think my most I would say the most iconic scene in this movie is with the big Mr. Marshmallow Man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that is, I think, one of my favorite things that happens in the movie. Especially when they're trying to like, when they zap it and stuff, and it's just like the belly just starts to like roast and like melt a little bit and stuff. I was just like, oh, give me some s'mores, please.
So this is actually funny. I was actually scared of that when I was young.
I mean, it's kind of terrifying to think, like, even though it's supposed to, like, it's even Ray says, like, I tried to not think of anything, but it just popped into my head. You see this this cute little face, and it's smiling and happy, but it's a giant, and it's causing havoc in New York and everything. But yeah, I would say, I think as a kid, that would probably be the most terrifying thing for a child.
Well, I think there's that, and then like I said, that first jump scare is actually pretty freaky.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, a lot of the ghosts in this movie are actually pretty terrifying. Especially
the big what do they call the fat guy? The Slimer or whatever.
Slimer. Yeah, yes. I think that's what it's called, Slimer. Yeah.
He's pretty nasty too. I remember like genuinely being afraid of that like weird neon colored ghost.
And he became the face of Ghostbusters, ironically.
Right.
Which, another tidbit and background on Slimer. Slimer is an homage to John Belushi, the person who made Slimer. He was pretty much in final production for Slimer, but then they came to his office or something and said, you have to make him look like John Belushi. And he's all like, well, fuck, all right then. I'll make him look like John Belushi. So well,
it's funny, he said like evidently he didn't change it at all, and there's like, it's perfect.
Yeah, he's all like, just made a few like things here and there, and he showed them, and they're like, yep, okay, that's good. Yeah, this movie is just really fun. My first time, again, like when I first actually watched it, I'm with you. There are definitely like a lot of outdated things that happen, especially with Venkman's character wanting to collude with his students and everything. It's all like, we shouldn't really do that.
You know what's funny? I don't know if it was just like more, I guess not funny, but was that just like more acceptable back then? Because I mean, like that trope has to exist for a reason.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it's just nobody really thought about it, and
like the power dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like in the 80s, like by then, women's rights were pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't say they were still fighting for it, but that type of generation that was around that time, especially like political wise, it was still kind of difficult for women to be empowered and everything. So I would say around that time it was kind of still evolving a little bit, and I think with movies in particular, it was nobody really bat an eye about it because it was in a movie. It wasn't like real life or anything. Not like now where there's like canceled culture and stuff, and you know, if somebody posted something or like a movie came out, the internet is just gonna tear it up, like, you know, eat it up and spit it out like it's gum. So
yeah, it's just and like I think it being in a comedy too is like, I guess I was like just meme worthy back then, even though it was like obviously genuinely happening.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of interesting. I think overall though, like while the story does have like weird cuts, I think as like a comedy, it's really like a classic. And I think in general the movie's a classic, obviously.
I mean, it made over its budget, so it's for sure a classic in its own. I mean, it.
Do you think it would do well now though? Like, essentially the same movie released today.
Well, they did do the gender bender twist.
And it was horrible.
I didn't even watch it, so I knew it was going to be bad. If they did a Ghostbusters, like if they decided to reboot this movie into as today kind of thing, I think
you'd have to pretend like all the other Ghostbusters don't exist.
Yeah. And I would also think they should probably, instead of making it into a comedy, maybe make it into more of an action thing. Versus like maybe throw kind of, okay, Ghostbusters, but kind of have it like how Guardians of the Galaxy is. Like it's action, but they throw in some of that like comic relief in it, but it's still like action and entertaining throughout the whole entire movie. Does that make sense a little bit?
It does make sense. Sort of like a buddy cop.
Yeah.
Which I mean, they talked about like different I think ideas they had for the plot, and some of them I thought were like potentially a little bit better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate the like, okay, we got thrown out of Columbia because obviously we're banging students and being weird, so we had to like invent a business. I think the jump from like getting kicked out of Columbia to like having a pretty successful business was like a little jarring for the viewer, because it's just like it seemed like they had nothing going, and then all of a sudden everybody like their phones ringing off the hook and they're like household names, famous, all this shit.
Yeah.
So it was just like a little bit jarring. But actually something that I thought would have been really interesting is, so like you and I had talked about like Halloween Town as like a potential entry into this series you got going. I was thinking it'd be cool if they did like, because their initial, or Dan Aykroyd's initial idea was like kind of in space.
Yeah.
There's ghosts all around, like, and I thought like something like that where there's like maybe like a city where there's like ghosts and zombies and stuff like that are like actually like part of society.
Right.
And then they had to like just go like basically be ghost cops for the bad ones.
Right.
Like, I think that could be, like, interesting as, like, more of, like, an action adventure, too. But, like, I honestly think any movie with Bill Murray, like, just popping off with his comedy would be good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know any movie he's been in that I thought was bad, where he, like, actually had the ability to do, like, his comedy and, like, improv and stuff like that. You know, there's this movie that I really wanted to see with him in it. It's called Lost in Translation. It's very difficult to find, but it's the one where he's like a failing actor or whatever, and he's like in Japan for the entire movie.
Ooh.
Yeah, and he like, I guess for whatever, I think it's Scarlett Johansson, he like hooks up with, I guess, as like friends.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I never watched this one, but I did want to watch it. And that's what I love about comedy actors is they, especially when they get older, because when they get older, sometimes they can't always do the comics, like the comedy stuff that they did in their heyday. So they start doing like these dramedies, and they just kind of just get better and better. So, yeah, I did want it. I have been wanting to watch this movie for a while.
It's just, I think it's just like the air about him. He always had sort of like a depressive kind of feel to him.
Yeah.
But he's like, he has like a cocky brashness that still makes it funny.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something special about his like mannerisms and his like,
I mean,
the faces he puts on and stuff like that, you know?
Like, even when he's in a movie that is not really centered around him, like Zombieland, he fucking played himself. And, you know, that was just great. That was awesome and everything. Yeah,
Big memer.
Yeah, he is a legend, a comic icon. He definitely knows his stuff when it comes to just improv and everything. Like, he's really not afraid to overstep boundaries and everything like that. And now I know you didn't have time to watch the second movie, but it's funny thing about the second movie is what I most remembered, and especially with the Statue of Liberty coming to life in that movie.
So I actually have never seen.
Oh no, you've never seen the second one? Oh no. So it's funny. When I first discovered Ghostbusters, I actually watched the second movie, and I never saw the first one when I was young, because my image of Ghostbusters was the Statue of Liberty, and that was that. And when I finally saw the first one, I'm all like, "Where's the Statue of Liberty?" And then I found out that there was a Ghostbusters 2. It's just like, oh, it's in that one. Okay, never mind.
I don't know if you saw this, but like evidently there's a ton of like animated Ghostbusters series as well.
Yeah. I don't remember where that animated series aired. But yeah, like the whole like after the show just went loose and was like a huge success and stuff. I mean, it got comic books. It got a television series, like an animated television series. It had video games. There's board games. There's clothing, music. I mean, they even have like haunted house attractions, too. Yeah. So this movie definitely like has its fan base and everything like that too.
I think that's another thing that just like absolutely stunned me, because like nobody really talks about Ghostbusters anymore. Even like there was that 2016 Gender Bend, and then Ghostbusters Afterlife came out. I think maybe even early this year. I can't remember.
Afterlife came out in November 20. When did it come out?
2020 or 2022?
So, it came out November 19th, 2021. So last year.
Okay.
Which I actually kind of want to see, because I mean, I don't know if you saw it or anything like that.
I did not.
But it goes into the lore of like the original cast, particularly it kind of mainly centers around the Egon. Apparently Egon, like something happened after the events of Ghostbusters 2, and Egon went to go investigate something in Oklahoma, and he bought a farm on Oklahoma, like in Oklahoma, and when he passed, his daughter inherited the farm, and she moved her and her kids to that farm, and like weird things start to happen, because like they found that one of the mechanisms that they holds like the ghosts and stuff, and then
one of the capture devices.
And apparently I guess they like opened it up or something like that. I mean, I don't know all like the whole premise of it, but it's something that I was just like, ooh, this might be this might, yeah. I kind of want to watch this.
I think Finn Wolfhard's in it, and like he's a really, really good actor, I think, for like a kid.
Oh yeah. He's, I mean, I love Stranger Things. Like he's great in that. I mean, all the kids in Stranger Things is great.
Yeah, so I definitely think that movie is supposed to be like the heir apparent like sequel for the ages. But what I was kind of trying to drive at is like, to me, I was so surprised that it was like kind of a cultural phenomenon, because it's like something that we don't really even consider much anymore.
Yeah.
But it's really like, if you recall, like back in our younger years, probably like middle school, like when Twilight popped off. You know what I mean? Like that was a cultural phenomenon. And like this is that
I wish
for
it never
the 80s.
Existed, though.
Well. What can
I
you
mean,
do?
being a Twilight fan myself, like I've read the books and everything, but then when I watched the first movie, I was just like, this is trash. This has ruined my.
What'd you not like about it?
There was just a lot of things missing, and the first movie in particular was just too fast. I felt very rushed to me, and there were a lot of important parts from the book that wasn't portrayed in the movie. Yeah. So, I mean, the other movies kind of got better, but after a while, like that the first movie kind of just ruined the whole series, the whole franchise for me, and I just like I have like a love-hate relationship with it. Plus Kristen Stewart's acting is really bad in it.
Yeah, she's just like a dead fish. It's crazy.
She has gotten better over time, with better roles, but that was just cringe-worthy.
True.
So and the whole franchise, like the whole Twilight franchise, is just a big meme at this point. Like there are even people on TikTok, like this one person, she has her significant other watching the Twilight movies for the first time, and he pauses the movie and he starts yelling at the TV like, "What are you doing, Bella?" Like it's like really funny.
That is funny.
So anyway, but let's save it for the Twilight podcast. This is Ghostbusters.
Sounds good. I only ever saw the first one.
It's bad. Don't watch the rest of them.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't planning on it.
Okay, good.
I think one thing, I think they do mention it kind of in that Netflix series, but it does feel a little like slapdash and kind of like moves very quickly.
Yes.
Like the pacing is like pretty much a full sprint the entire time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had a deadline, and
Right.
they need like I wouldn't say they procrastinated, but there was a lot of things that they had to like do. Like for example, the freaking theme song, that was like the who was it? Oh gosh, I am a terrible person.
I don't think this would make that happen.
I forgot the name of the dude. Ray Parker Jr. Fuck. God.
This is his only hit.
It
so
is.
it's not like-
I mean, I know, but still, like, poor guy.
I mean, he made $1 bajillion off one song.
He did.
I think he's fine.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. So apparently they're like, yeah, we need a theme song, and Ray Parker Jr. comes into play, and they're like, hey, we need you to write this song, but you have to have the title Ghostbusters in it. And he's like, well, how the fuck am I gonna do this? Like, and he tried like everything to put Ghostbusters in, but then like what really hit him was like the inspector, like the bug inspector commercials and everything like that. It's like, well, who are you gonna call? And then that's how like he figured out how to write the lyrics for Ghostbusters.
I honestly thought that part was like so dorky. I was like, this is like not even worth like the entry into the little docu-series, because it was like, first of all, he did not sound very articulate, so I was just like, okay, man, like you just came up with a song, all right.
I
You know
mean,
what I mean? He was like, I just could not figure it out. Ghostbusters, like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, all right, man, we get it. It just felt like he was like hamming it up and playing it up really like hard.
I mean,
and I'm like,
probably like it's a documentary series, so and it's
I know it's just
it's
like
highly
dude,
fun.
It's not that in-depth lyrics.
Well, I mean,
you
the
gonna call?
whole thing. I mean, from like the narrator to like everything that like how they edited that episode and stuff. It's very cheesy.
Yeah.
So, still a great documentary series. Like Ethan, I highly recommend like watching like everything that's on that docu-series, because they do Die Hard. What else do they do? They do Halloween. They do like their latest season 3. They do a lot of Halloween movies. Like the first 3 episodes, they did Halloween. They did Coming to America. They did Forrest Gump. They did Pretty Women, Back to the Future. So there are a lot of like iconic movies in this docuseries. And for me, it was very interesting to watch all of them. Particularly Forrest Gump. A lot of shit happened in that movie that wasn't even supposed to be in that movie that made it into the movie.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Like that documentary series definitely made a lot of things clear, and why I get really interested in like behind the scenes kinds of things when movies are made and everything. And I think that's why I love movies so much, is because of all the things that people have to go through in order to make these movies that everyone loves.
Yeah, I mean, you really just like expect movies to come out and be perfect, but like all the shit you got to do to make this stuff happen just like really blows you away.
Yeah.
Like even the behind the scenes, like rights to a title kind of shit.
Oh, yeah. So, fun fact, the Ghostbusters title was actually owned by a TV show, which was also called Ghostbusters, and I can't remember the name of the studio that had the rights to it. But they were literally like a week before the movie had to be released, and they still didn't get the rights to use Ghostbusters. But the CEO of Columbia, who left Columbia, worked at the studio that the animated studio had the rights for this TV show, and he's all like, "You can have the title." And then the movie.
Yeah, they really lucked out.
Yeah,
they really lucked out.
Yeah. So, yeah, the like I said, the behind the scenes stuff is what really makes me super intrigued in movie making. And that's why, again, like why I love watching movies so much. And I do love to do these reviews and just talk about certain movies, especially iconic movies.
I guess what's your one scene beyond the Stay Puffed Man that like sticks out to you as like, this is Ghostbusters?
I'm trying to think. Probably around like the library, like when they first like get the call about, or I think it was a library or something like that. Yeah, it was the library. Before they really got into the business and they became famous and stuff like that. They go to the library and stuff, and they encounter that paranormal like librarian who like turns to them and like like tells them to be quiet and stuff.
Yeah. I think for me it's like the first time they go out on that Sedgwick Hotel kind of mission for the Slimer.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
And you like you see them driving their like old hearse ambulance thing.
Yeah.
With like their annoying ass siren. Yeah. But like but the funny thing is, like, when the guy called them, he's like, "You're gonna be really like discreet about this, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, totally." And then they come in with wailing sirens,
right.
and they're like, "Anyone seen a ghost?"
Yeah.
Just like super, super funny. And then since that's their first mission, they're using their like whatever their nuclear physic particulator guns are called.
Right.
And they're just like murking the hotel.
Yeah. They're just
like
making
almost
a mess.
killed. They almost killed like a housekeeper too. And she's like, "What the hell are you
doing?" Yeah.
It's just like such a funny like sequence of scenes there.
Yeah. I mean, the whole movie is funny within its own. When Winston gets hired, he's an outsider. Like, he's not really a part of the clique. And he's just all like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And like when they got arrested, he's all like, hey man, I wasn't even there, why did I get arrested? Like, this isn't fair.
That was funny. Yeah.
Also, side note, when they got arrested, they had fucking blueprints of the apartment complex.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell did that happen? I don't understand.
Well, he was reading them in the car, and I think they got arrested while he had them on him. So he probably just like threw them in the drunk tank or whatever that was.
I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
That's just one of those like suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, literally like movie things. Like, we have to move the plot along. Like, yes, this doesn't make sense, but you know, it's gonna happen.
I did like think it was weird. The guy who played that Winston, he was like ticked off he wasn't in more scenes, and I'm like, dude, these guys are like 3 extremely famous people. Like, why are you expecting to be in every scene with them?
I mean, Ernie Hudson, I think he was doing more TV versus movie.
Right, but like still, he's no Bill Murray.
I have no excuse for that.
I just thought it was like, it's just like classic Hollywood stuff where people just like want to be in every scene. It's
yeah,
like, dude,
I mean, well,
you're literally a nobody.
I mean, that's what Ramis said, like, because there were certain scenes that Winston was actually supposed to say, but Bill Murray took those lines, and so Winston's character just kept being pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So, and Ernie, he was kind of getting a little ticked off slightly, but then Harold was all like, hey man, like, it really has nothing to do with you specifically. Like, this is the business. So, and Ernie was just all like, he put his hands up kind of, and it's just like, okay.
I mean, I'm sure he did all right off of it, and then it became such a big like thing that he probably had the opportunity to make a bunch of money later on, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, he did a bunch of movies. I mean, of course, he did Ghostbusters 2 and stuff like that, which I think personally, to me, I think Winston definitely gets a much better role in Ghostbusters 2 versus 1. Which I do highly recommend you try and watch Ghostbusters 2 at some point, because it's actually a pretty great movie. I don't think it's as good as the second one, but the events that happen in the second one are pretty interesting. So, and
I watched like a little recap of it in case you did want to go over it, but I obviously haven't seen it.
It's fine. We don't have to go over it. It's cool.
Okay.
It's fine. So, but yeah, let's we're pretty much at the hour mark. Let's do final thoughts, and then we can wrap this up. So
yeah, I mean, I just think it was like really fun to revisit the Ghostbusters world, because like I said, I haven't seen it since I was like a little kid.
Right. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where like you remember like maybe a couple scenes, like the Stay Puffed stays with you forever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe like the green ghost, the Slimer guy as well, like very, very iconic, like sticks out in your mind. But it was just like fun. And then like the kind of accompanying docu-series you had me watch as well, I think just really put it all into perspective and made it like not only is it like a good movie, but a funny good movie, but it is like really a cultural icon of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
What I did find really funny is it was released in the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
Which like I would have thought like it'd be a good Spooktober, but I guess Spooktober wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So the ex-CEO of Columbia Pictures, when he was brought the script for Ghostbusters, he said, okay, I want this movie to be released on June 8th, 1994. And when they came to Columbia, it was like May something of 93. But his reason for releasing it in the summertime is because school's out, a lot of people are on like vacation and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like the summertime is definitely where a lot of people go to movies. And I have noticed that over the years, especially in the summertime, there will be like a lot of movies coming out on specifically like weekdays particular. Like there would be a lot of weekday releases versus like only Friday kind of thing. It's just where a lot of money comes in. Not so much people are going to movie theaters right now because of COVID, and all these like streaming sites are just releasing their movies straight to, you know, like Disney Plus and everything like that. So
yeah, I mean, there's been dog shit movies out recently though, to be fair. Like I have that Regal like Unlimited or whatever, but there just really hasn't been anything to even watch.
Yeah. Oh, side note. What do you think about the Mario movie that's coming out?
Zero interest.
Really?
I couldn't care less. I didn't care about Sonic. It was actually decent, but I don't care.
All right.
Like game movies are kind of silly to me.
Okay. I mean, they're not the best. They're still not the best, but they're getting better. But anyway, yeah, like this movie is for sure like a cult classic. Absolutely. And I think everyone should for sure watch it during spooky month and everything. Especially if you're not too keen on like scary movies. I'm definitely not a scary movie person. I'm the type of person that will not watch a scary movie by myself, like especially at nighttime and in the dark. If I do watch,
well, you gotta watch scary movies with friends for sure.
If I do, I need a security blanket and I need the lights on.
You need a Glock by your bedside table.
Probably.
Yeah.
I watched The Evil Dead, the reboot, one time with some friends. And I literally had to tell them, we need to watch a comedy or else I'm not going home. Like, I won't be able to sleep at night. So we ended up watching Dazed and Confused, and I ended up going home at like 2 in the morning. So, yeah.
That's another classic. 80s movies just hit different.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I wasn't born when this movie came out, but like to me, I feel like it's nostalgia. I'm also like a fan of older films. I mean, even older than the 80s. Like there are some 1950s films that I love and everything, and not a lot of people think about like really like older movies. But what do you rate Ghostbusters, Ethan?
I rate it a 83 out of 100.
Ooh, okay.
For 1983.
All right. 1983. Okay. I am going to, you know what? I'm going to bump you up 2 points. I'm going to do 85 out of 100 Slimers.
Nice. Yeah, it's one of those movies where it's good, but it's like there's not really a lot of comedy movies that have like a really solid plot or like even the cinematography or cinematography, if you will, is never like amazing. And then in this case, it's even worse because it's just like they're trying to get it all done in like 2 months.
Definitely it was really a rough patch. I really can't really say anything about the cinematography because it was a mess, especially after watching the documentary episode, because they even showed a few areas where it like the building was jaggedy and everything like that. So, and they're all like quick, like the frames have to be like super fast because we don't want people seeing what we like, what we did here and everything. So, and I mean, of course, like special effects nowadays like are like completely out of this world. Like it's definitely evolved, especially with the high-tech computers that we have nowadays that can just practically make a movie itself.
Yeah, fun fact, Jurassic Park really started the whole CGI in movies thing.
It did. Yeah.
You should check that out, and that should be your favorite movie as well. Thank you.
Maybe we'll do a Jurassic Park cinematography.
Let's fucking go.
Because so fun fact about the Jurassic Park series, my first time watching them, I was 27.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
It was like my childhood. I had like the whole pajamas and stuff.
Yeah. I was just never like, it was never really on my radar, as a kid, at least. So, yeah. And around the time when I did watch it, I was like really in my kind of like, I want to watch, Hollywood prime time, like really like the iconic movies, like especially like a lot of Steven Spielberg movies. So and that's kind of like where I started off and literally went down the rabbit hole on literally watching like a lot of 80s movies and a lot of 90s movies. So, but yeah. So thank you, Ethan, for helping me with this. This was a lot of fun, and I hope to do more cinematography episodes. Is there anything that you want to plug?
Hey, thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, just, I guess, check out Weebology Podcast, anywhere you get, podcasts. And then obviously, we've got a YouTube as well. We're trying to get more consistent there and even do some, like, outside of the podcast type content.
Yeah. Fun.
That's all I'll plug.
Okay. But yeah, guys, thank you very much. Stay tuned. Our next movie review, I'm hoping to do Halloween Town and The Craft for next week. And
nice.
Yeah, stay spooky, my friends.
Spooktober.
See you guys later.